Bibles out. Don't turn in the pages yet. Just make sure that you got them. As most of you know, we have been going through a series that we've been calling Sex Talk. And I know Pastor Zach talked with you last week about all that. I heard it really well. Did you enjoy last week? Yeah, I heard it was great. Heard it was awkward. Heard it was funny. At a lot of different points. And I have not listened to it yet, but I will. But I heard it was pretty crazy. So we were going to talk about tonight, we're going to talk what it means to be a real man of Jesus. We're going to get the biblical manhood, biblical womanhood, and really look at the masculine side of things and how we are, us as guys, are supposed to be men of Christ, and how you as ladies are supposed to be looking for men of Christ in your lives. But because of some things that have happened over the past couple weeks, and especially over the past couple months, we're going to change some gears tonight, and we're going to look at another topic, and just to know how to deal and how to cope and how to handle some things that have happened. Now, here's what I want to say. Here's kind of the rules that I want to lay out. Tonight, we thought about kind of making tonight a little bit more quiet, a little bit more somber, a little bit more reflective, but we said, you know what, man, this week has been hard for a lot of people. And so we want tonight to be based on hope as much as possible. We want tonight to be a refuge for you, just to get away from some stuff that's happening out there, to get away, just to get here with Jesus. So we want to offer as much hope tonight. We want to, instead of it being an emotional night, we want it to be an educational night. We really want to teach you how to think through these things. And so this is not going to be a sad, emotional talk for you. This is going to be very straightforward. This is going to be very, I don't know how else to do it, but just to give you the absolute facts that you need to know when it comes to these topics. Tonight is going to be very much so focused on Jesus and not on ourselves. So I'm just going to ask you just to try to stick with me, to listen as close as you possibly can, to write down as much as you can. So if you don't have a pen, maybe right now is a good time to raise your hand. Some of our leaders in the back, there's some pens in the cafe table back there, in the welcome table, that you can get your hands on to make sure that you can get some answers to a lot of our questions that is going on. So tonight, like I said, it's a night of hope. Tonight is a night of help, and so I want you to try to get control of our emotions as much as possible, to listen as closely as we can, and just to hear what God has to say to us on these topics. Because I believe God is offering a lot of truth. I believe God is offering a lot of help that we all need to know. We're not focusing on anybody else tonight other than Jesus. So here's the deal. I'm going to give it to you straight. All right? I'm going to give it to you straight. I'm going to give you some cold, hard facts when it comes to teenage death and suicide. So, again, be strong. And if I'm going through some things that you just cannot handle, or if you're going through some things emotionally that you feel like that maybe you're drawing too much attention to yourself, just trust me, it is okay if you ever want to slip out. If you can't handle things, that is totally fine. We're not locking you in here. We'll even send an adult out with you to pray with you. They'll take you to a less snowy place and to pray with you and to talk with you and to make sure that things are cool. So just again, be strong. I want to be clear. I would rather not you hear a watered down message on teenage death and suicide. I'd rather just be straightforward with you. We can't focus on this all the time, so let's just get it all out at once, okay? Here's the deal. Here's the situation. About the last 2 months, I can think of 4 different teenage deaths when it comes to things like suicide. 4 different ones, just since Thanksgiving. Maybe some of you can think of more, but I'm thinking of just some in our area, from Limestone, Harvest, Madison, and so on. And so I think this is a very important topic that we need to cover. In light of all of these events, I have had many of you come up and tell me personally, and I would never mention any names to anyone, but some of you have come up and told me personally, I have either thought about it, you have told me that you have contemplated it, you have seriously been tempted, or you have attempted suicide. And so I want to make sure who we're talking to tonight. We're talking to people who have struggled with this before, who may be struggling with this now, who maybe are going through it now because of some things that have happened with some friends. Some people that maybe you've just been tempted or considered it lightly. So let's just get it all out on the table. Let's make it as clear as possible. I usually have about 1 page of notes. That's usually how I know how much I'm going to preach that night. Tonight I have 5. Okay? So we're going to get done with this and then go get a midnight snack and go home. Alright? So that's kind of the plan. Alright? So we'll be done by 8. Make sure you got a pen, paper, Bible, ready to go. Open up your cell phone. You can look up scripture that way. You can take notes that way. But if you have your cell phone out, don't be texting, don't be checking the weather. It's snow. That's all you need to know. It's snow right now, and if we get snowed in, I say awesome. We'll just stay here and we'll keep partying together. All right, here we go. Here we go. Go ahead and put up this. We'll call it tonight, Let Hope Rise, the Hope Rise movement. Go ahead and put up this first slide. Here's what we need to know. We need to know from 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 11, that we would not be outwitted, or we would not be outsmarted by Satan. For we are not ignorant of his designs. We're not ignorant of his schemes. In other words, Satan is the enemy. Satan is real. Satan is alive. Satan is out there and he's working around and he loves sin. He loves death. He loves chaos. He loves to enter into your life, enter into your realm, your world, and just try to wreck absolutely everything. And so God says, part of His Word is dedicated to our knowledge of knowing how Satan works. The best way to fight against your enemy is to study him, to know what he's up to know how he works, to know how he operates. All right, so here we go. I want to show you some ways of some things going on in our society that we need to know, that we need to understand. This is a crazy important topic. Here we go. Next slide. Please. These are some statistics here on different deaths and teenage suicides that have been going on the last few years. Okay, here we go. Just keep going. Put that up, Jacob, if you got it. You can write some of these down, the ones that you think are very important. Every 100 minutes, there's a teenager in our world that commits suicide. 27% of all high schoolers 27% of all high schoolers have actually thought about killing themselves. 8%, wow. What is sin marvelous? Okay, 17, great. 8% of all high schoolers, middle schoolers, teenagers actually think about, attempt suicide. 10% of all teenagers seriously consider it. 8% of teenagers have actually had a plan for suicide before. 30,000 Americans, including 5,000 teenagers, committed suicide just last year. 30,000 Americans and 5,000 teenagers. For every suicide that is successful with teenagers, there are 100 more attempts. So for every one that is successful, there are at least 100 other attempts that teenagers go through with suicide. Most suicides are attempted or successful between 3 o'clock in the afternoon and midnight. Teenage girls think about suicide twice as much as teenage guys. Teenage girls tend to attempt suicide by things like overdosing on drugs and cutting. Teenage guys are more likely to commit suicide than teenage girls. In fact, I think they are 4 times more likely to attempt. 304 guys as opposed to 66 girls committed suicide between 2005 and 2007. Guys die by suicide 4 times more than girls, and we're wondering, why is that? Why would more guys die by teenage suicide than girls? It's probably because of the ways that they attempt. Usually teenage guys, there's a pattern of more lethal ways. If it is a gun or ways that, man, jumping from heights. Just to be totally honest with you, I'm not trying to gross you out or scare you. We just got to get the facts out there. By the way, there's a lot of people that say, be very careful how you talk about this. Be very careful how you present these type things. And just so you know, I'm completely, fully aware of that, and I totally agree with that. A lot of people say, you don't want to give people ideas or give them ways and strategies how to pull it off. Here's my deal. This has gone on long enough, and it has got to stop, for real. With 4 that I know of successes in the past couple months, and far more, they say, again, there's 100 more attempts. That could be in the last 2 months, just in our area, 400 different suicidal attempts. It's got to stop, and the only way I know to stop it is not by shutting up, but by talking about it, all right? So that is why I want you to know yes, there is something out there that says don't talk about it because there may be copycats. All right? But here's the deal. I would much rather you know the facts and tell you this is what your friends are up to. This is what you might see. Here, if we can tap into some of these things so that you can talk to them and possibly that God can work in your life so that you can stop them, then that would be an amazing thing. That's why I just want to be straightforward and honest with you. Guys die by suicide 4 more times, usually more lethal ways, by guns, jumping off from heights, different things like that. The risk of suicide increases dramatically when there is a gun in the home. Nearly 60% of all suicides in the U.S. are committed with a firearm. Suicide is rated as high as the 2nd leading cause of death for all teenagers. The 2nd leading cause of death for all teenagers and young adults. Okay, here we go. Suicide has tripled among teenagers since 1970. Since 1970, suicide has tripled. There are 3 times more teenage deaths by suicide now than there was in 1970. Now think about this real quick. Think about it real quick. What was life like for a teenager in 1970? They didn't have any cell phones. They didn't have any computers. They didn't have any internet. They didn't have any video game consoles. Most of them did not have their own car. Different things like that. And today, it's like, man, teenagers have whatever they want. Are these things driving our teenagers to suicide? No, not at all. These things are not sin of themselves. But here's one thing we need to understand. We think these things make us happy. We think if I just get this stuff, I will be happy, I will be fulfilled, I will be satisfied, life will be better. Don't take these things away from me. I have a right, I deserve them, and it's not true. A lot of times we are trying to use technological gadgets, entertainment, different things like that to numb the pain. And it's not working. It's not working. All we're doing is just barely numbing it, but we are not dealing with the direct problems themselves. So suicide, not only has suicide, by the way, tripled in 1970, but also so has divorce. Also so has divorce. They are equal with one another for some reason. Divorce and suicide have both tripled since 1970, from then to now. Here's what I have to say to that. Number one, if you are a teenager in a divorced home, you're not alone. There are lots of teenagers from divorced homes here. Number two, if you are a teenager from a divorced home, you are not helpless. You are not hopeless. Man, we're going to talk tonight about all the hope that Jesus offers us and that God has a phenomenal life for you in store. Also, if you're someone who is going through this, then we've got answers for you. We've got help for you.